What do you know? What do you know about genetic engineering? What does that mean? What have you learned about that so far?
Breeders will take certain animals that they really like characteristics from,
Yeah.
like, and then make them breed. Like an example would be horses that win races. They're like, oh, we have to have them have babies because they'll have really good horse babies.
Really good horse babies. Good. You are talking about kind of the oldest, the low tech, the very first genetic engineering on the planet, which is way old, like thousands of years old. Yeah, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Good. What else?
Similar to that, there is like certain breeds of dogs that have just like become a breed. They weren't breeds to begin with. Like I forget the exact name, but it's an Australian Shepherd and a wolf. No, a German Shepherd and a wolf.
Hmm.
And it's good for like hunting and a lot of like farms use it for like hunting and stuff like that. And basically what I'm saying is that they'll take certain genes from one animal and certain genes from another animal and mix them together and make new.
Yeah. And there's sort of what Hayes is talking about, what I think you're talking about, doing that by having the animals you like breeding with each other. But we've kind of moved even beyond that now, haven't we? What? Do what with humans?
Like I'm talking about, like if like say there's like an MLB baseball player.
Yeah.
Like say he has a kid like another woman, just random.
Uh-huh.
But just saying that would they breed like a D1 athlete like to like a person?
That would depend, Tristan, on how much of athleticism is genetic, right? And certainly the answer is some of it is. Some of it is, I mean, there's a lot of baseball players' kids that are MLB players, right? But some of that is, of course, the culture they're brought up in. Knowing that their dad's an MLB player makes them maybe more likely to want to be one. But certainly some aspects of athletic skill have to be genetic, right? So that's interesting. So starting with the low-tech stuff that you all have in mind, which is cool because that's where we're starting, we are then going to kind of quickly move up into what's going on in the last 30 years and then to what's going on now, both of which are very different from that low-tech selective breeding, we call it.
Is there certain technology nowadays? Because I know you can get like in vitro and stuff, like if you can't have babies.
Mm-hmm.
But is there certain technology that even when you're pregnant, you can change the eggs to
Absolutely.
Y chromosomes?
So like this started with you can just sort the sperm because of course it's dad that determines whether it's a boy or a girl, right?
Yeah.
They started with being able to just sort the sperm and do in vitro, like you said, which is when fertilization happens outside the body, but then they implant into the woman actually carries the baby to term. You could choose the sex of your baby. At this point, we have the technology where we can get into that first cell or into the sperm or egg before you carry the baby and start to actually mess with individual genes of it. That's where we're going. We'll talk about the technology that can allow that. Like this is not the future. This is the only reason we're not doing this right now is because we think we probably shouldn't so far. But it's probably coming. So it's an interesting chapter. And we'll try and keep the hard stuff to a minimum, but there's a certain amount of DNA. Like you understand some stuff now that you needed. And we'll have to understand a little more to really get where we're going. But it's a fairly short chapter. We should be done by next week. So yeah, let's start with low tech. Let's start with the kind of like thousands-year-old method of just saying, I like that animal over there because it's fast, and I like that animal over there because it's smart. I want to put those two inside a fence, make sure one's a boy and one's a girl, and see if I can get babies that are fast and smart. Selective breeding. Selective breeding, changing populations by controlling the breeding, It's basically as old as fences. Maybe older, as you'll learn when we watch our movie about dogs. Because dogs, Riley, dogs. You mentioned something about dogs, but do you know where dogs came from? Like all dogs come from the common ancestor of wolves, the gray wolf. That's crazy. We did that.
Color of wolves came from breeding different colors over because there were.
Well, we'll get to that. That's not entirely true. We have some interesting. Yeah, wait till you see the Russian fox farmer experiment. It's pretty cool. Now, what I said, which was basically, I was describing a mule, by the way, that horses are fast, donkeys are smart. Breed them together, you get a mule that has the best of both worlds. That's called hybridization, taking two different things you like and trying to get them together in one.
Why do we make fun of donkeys and mules?
Do you make fun of donkeys and mules? Because that's not very nice, Hazen.
They're smart.
Are they what? Absolutely. The reason we don't consider horses and donkeys the same species is because their offspring cannot reproduce. There's a chromosomal mismatch, and so mules cannot reproduce. To get more mules, you have to breed more horses and donkeys together. So yeah, that's when we define species, we mentioned that. But still, very useful animal, a mule. They also have the advantage that donkeys have of being able to see all four of their feet at once, which horses can't, which makes them much more sure-footed on like rocky trails and stuff. So hybridization, then kind of the inverse of that is inbreeding, which of course we tend to think of in a negative light. Correctly, it is typically not a good thing for genetic health. You know why?
Isn't it, there's a higher risk of like mutation?
It's not a higher risk of mutations exactly. It's a higher risk that the mutations that you have are going to be the same as the mutations that your close relative might have, right? You've all got weird recessive alleles that could totally kill you if you had two of them. Like you have no head allele and like you have throw up your lungs allele and you have arms fall off allele, but it's fine because you don't have two of them, right? And as long as you have babies with someone who's not closely related to you, it's very unlikely that you both bring together those two recessive alleles. You know how that works now from genetics in a baby. But the more closely genetically related you are to someone, the more likely that you both have arms fall off allele or whatever, right? That you have your weird mutations on the same spots. And so that's why inbreeding can produce genetic disorders, right? The advantage to inbreeding, not in humans, of course, although it's been done, right? That's pretty much how the European royal families did it, right? Keep it in the family. Your royal bloodline comes from your blood, so don't pollute your blood with other families. Whew. Okay. The disadvantage, of course. The advantage is, yeah, if you want a dog exactly like those two dogs, you breed those two dogs together and you keep the traits you like. It works. It just comes with great risk.
Like purebred dogs only live to be like 8 years old.
It is why purebred dogs often have genetic disorders. Length of their lives tends to correlate more with size than anything else. Bigger dogs don't live as long. Yes. It is a golden doodle named Xenia. She is, oh no, standard poodle size. She's probably 3/4 poodle and 1/4 golden. She is a failed out service dog. Yeah, she was going to be like a seizure dog, but she pees when she gets excited. She failed and we got her. Yeah, she's pretty cool, except for the peeing part. We named her Xenia because that's where the service dog school is. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a few really dramatic examples of selective breeding changing populations. This is just one, right? Like from that to, oh my gosh, to whoa.
What went wrong?
Again, lots in this movie we're going to watch about how this happened. There's certain parts we know very well that a lot of these breeds came from the Victorian period in England when aristocrats needed something to kind of show off their wealth. But the beginning part is very much in question. Like we don't know exactly how the first wolves and people started hanging out. That's another pretty dramatic example. That's the ancestor of corn from the Andes Mountains. Tastes terrible, real bitter, gross. And then somehow we get to delicious, sweet, golden corn just by picking the ones we liked best. Cool. That's probably good for today. Yeah, just.
If there were to breed with like two dogs that were sisters, that like
No, because they're not related
They're
to the
related.
name, right? Yeah. I'm not gonna give you homework tonight because I don't wanna. You just took a test. All right. Yeah. No.
Told you because there's a raid.
Relax. Don't set anything on fire.
No problem. How did you know I was gonna do that?
The hair. Good.
There's gonna be no action.
That's good. That's good.